It seems like everyone these days is talking about AI agents and no one is actually showing them.
I think you're absolutely right, Ethan. And that is exactly why I picked out the 4 top submissions from our community.
They're all in different industries. Let's do it.
Everybody hates churn, especially the CEO. So how do we fix that? I think we can take care of that in customer success by having this note-taking app. This is going to look at sentiment analysis, risk score, everything that a customer success director would be expecting their customer success managers to be thinking about on every phone call. Now they don't have to think about it. It just automatically does it from the transcript. After this is done, it'll go to append a row. Let me just show you real quick. So this is one, I ran it and I said a bunch of words and phrases that would potentially lead to a churn, and look what it did. It had high negative overall sentiment, gave really good red flags expressed, explicit churn threat, what to do, actions to take. And then right here, I quantified it. So if you go back, it's like in this row, I said, determine the client from the email address. And then in that column, churn risk, have it quantify from the sentiment into a 1 to 10 number. And as you can see, one test that I did was I didn't say anything much about churn. That was 2. And then I talked a lot about I want to leave and quit and da-da-da. I gave it 9. So from there, after that's done, if there is a churn greater than 5, it sends an email to the customer success manager as well as the CEO. And then on a recurring schedule, Friday at 9 a.m., it'll look through and look at that spreadsheet, look at that column specifically with the quantifies, and do a whole bunch of KPIs that the CEO would want to see as an executive summary. So now customer success is pretty much on autopilot. We can then course correct on Fridays. So then when we look at the next week ahead, we can figure out ways to service our clients better, make everybody happy, understand when churn is coming. And if churn is coming, make sure that our accounting and finance and modeling is correct. But everything is just better. And this is just scratching the surface. So Lindy's going to be super helpful. I hope you guys can take some of this and apply it to your business. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, John. That was incredible. The level of detail from what's happening in real-time health monitoring to logging on the spreadsheet to even the weekly reports. I'm sure John, CEO, is pretty happy.
Yeah. I think I love the fact that when something happens to when people find out about it and course correct, it just completely automates the timeline between that, which is where the savings are, I think.
Yeah. Use agents to monitor your customers.
Totally.
Up next, we have Kevin, who basically built a real estate expert in a box. It is pretty wild. I feel like these days you could honestly hire a real estate analyst or DM Kevin and send you his agents. I'm just going to leave it at that.
This is my real estate deal coach agent. So this is the basic flow. So at first, it's going to look at the property and analyze the deal, make sure it's a good deal. It's going to look at 2 things, either a wholesale deal or a subject to deal. After that, it will enrich the data for the listing agent. If it's on market, it'd be the owner if it was off market. After that, it's going to create some reports, put them in Google Drive. And after that, update the database in Google Sheets, and then send an email with the offer to the listing agent. And that is the flow. Here is the data. So it starts with properties, and this is just a raw format. And so it analyzes that data, puts it in this sheet tab, and it will score it. And for instance, here, 4 out of 10. So these are low scoring. And then, so some are, high, like this one's strong subject to type candidate. So then the interesting thing is it will give some advice on what to say. So if you call the agent, here are some tips. Here's some things you can say, gives 2 or 3 pointers, creates a report that you can go by as well. So it gives you a summary, listing agent information, gives you information about the property, going on down, financials. So what's important here on the deal analysis, it does not recommend doing a wholesale deal. It does recommend doing a subject to, and then it gives the financials, and you set the rules and so forth like that. So here's the pain points, talking points, and the score. We'll do a comparable analysis, goals, and finally the recommendation and next steps. So it's very helpful. Save time, 100%.
Flo, what was your reaction to Kevin's agent?
That's a sick agent. Like, I just love to see just how many use cases agents could be used for. It's just like every industry can deploy agents for like all sorts of use cases. It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. What I love about this one too is, I don't know, we would have never been able to build this agent. You know, Kevin is very deep in real estate, and so he was able to translate all of his knowledge into these different agent steps, and the result was pretty magical. Social media can be a lot to keep up with, both one, seeing all the information you want through the clutter, and two, one of the best ways to grow accounts is actually engaging with accounts you like.
Absolutely, which is why ever since Tim made this, I've actually been using it.
What I did is, based on a recurring schedule, I have it looking into some of these key accounts that I've identified, some of the top contributors on LinkedIn that are related to the topics that I want to be engaging with. And through the Appify tool, it will then run and scrape and search for any posts that they've posted within the last 24 hours. Once it's pulled those posts, it will run through an agent to help analyze those posts, and then it will fire off into a Google Doc showing me what the post is, who posted it, what the overall theme is, and then help me think through what are some engaging responses that I can leave that are not only, thought-inducing, but also going to be insightful to the person as well as that person's audience. And so this is the end result as it sits today. So what you can see here is when we look to the side, we have the various profiles that have been scraped. The posts that they have, looks like the most recent posts here, giving me a quick summary, gives me a link to the URL exactly. It's come up with this score for it, tags, things like that. But then we can also see the recommended responses and strategies that it gives. So these would be great things I could also take into like ChatGPT or Claude and use it to help kind of craft a message and craft a response to the post.
This was insane. I love that it had all the URLs, so you could actually go and insert yourself into all of these amazing conversations, but you don't actually have to do the dirty work finding them.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful. I've actually adapted Tim's agent, so every morning I wake up and in my Slack, I just see 10 URLs, I click on them, I react, I'm done.
Next up, we have Thanh. All he does is drags and drops a podcast idea, and his agent pulls from his actual real-life stories and generates the entire transcript. Super cool.
Yeah, I especially love that Thanh manages agents with a little Kanban board. It feels like a glimpse into the future.
So I use Jira. So we have a Kanban board here, and we do a lot of podcasting, newsletters, blog contents, the whole thing. Let's just say, one of the topics is short-term versus long-term productivity tips at work. If you look at the parents, it basically has a really short description. And then we have different podcast formats. We have a shorter format on Wednesday and a long form on Monday. So all I got to do is just drag this over. And so what happens now is with the Jira automation, it triggers a webhook inside Lindy. Here it is. And so it's going to go down this whole branch. I basically loaded a bunch of JSON files of context about me, the company, what we're trying to do here. And here's something cool. So part of the process is it's going to find stories that I have in a Google Sheet. So I have this Google Sheet here that basically has all the stories I've ever told in my life. And the way it gets this is actually from two different sources. One is every time I have a meeting, I use your meeting note taker. And then if I ever tell a story on a meeting, it will update this Google Sheets. And then also I have a backlog of podcasts. And so we kind of went through it and then kind of ran it through this Google Sheet as well. So every time I share the story on my past podcast episodes, it will update this. And so what's cool about it is when it's producing a podcast, like here right now, we're doing a podcast here. We have, different branches for what it's going to produce. So Wisdom Wednesday is a short form, long form podcast, a newsletter content piece, LinkedIn post, and so on. But what it does is basically, since it knows the topic, it's going to find a story that semantically matches the topic. So since we're talking about short-term versus long-term productivity tips, it will try to find a story based on the topics column that kind of matches it. So it's not a keyword match, but actually a semantic match. And you know how the LLMs, they sometimes make up stories and everything. Well, now that we have a story bank, it will actually create stories in the podcast show notes that is real and legitimate because it's based on my story. And so as you can see, it's working here. And so you can tell it went through the story bank and it produces everything in JSON that it finds related. And then basically it recognizes the podcast format because every every subtask inside of an issue has like a channel field. And so that will kind of trigger what we're going to be doing. And so now it follows a very specific outline, talking points between me and my co-hosts, Brooks Duncan, and then you'll see it references the story that it found in the Google Sheets. And so when I prepare a show note, it's basically referencing past stories that I can insert into my podcast. So every story I ever share on the podcast is real. And now it's done. And so what it did is, if we go back to this issue here, it updated here this comments. It created a new Google Doc as a show note outline. The intro is consistent. And then we just kind of have to fill in this. There's some minor tweaking I have to do with the numbers, but for the most part, it kind of creates the whole show note. And so when my co-host and I come together, we just kind of keep rocking and rolling. So now something that took me 4 or 5 hours to do per podcast is basically done in 2 minutes. So pretty cool. Thank you for allowing me to show this to you. Hope this is helpful. And keep doing what you're doing with Lindy. I really love the product. I actually teach workshops now, teaching people how to use Lindy. So I'm really excited for you guys and looking forward to all the feature updates.
Wow, that was amazing. The depth in that agent, how he created that story bank, connected it to podcast scripts. Honestly, your imagination is not even the ceiling.
Yeah, Tan's a different kind of builder. I'm sure you guys believe us now after watching that, and every time he shows me a build, I'm blown away. Those are some pretty epic demos. I know we had a lot of fun putting this together, so maybe we'll have to do it again. If you want to see the full demos, the links are in the comments. If you want to get started building with Lindy so you can be like these people, there's a ton of great content on our channel as well.